And we live. As usually, no one yet listening. Okay, I'm preparing for go to the record. 1 second. Okay, main recording. 3, 2, 1, and let's go. And hello everyone, welcome to the Non-Intuitive Beats podcast episode. Who knows the number? I don't, and it's brought to you by the Leaders Club that you're part to if you're listening to us, but do consider elevating your club membership by joining Discord channel, which is starting last episode actually in the show notes. We forgot to put it for the several episodes, and today with me in this virtual studio, Dmitry Mananikov. Say hi to the people.
Hello.
And as usually most annoying voice, that is my voice. Slava Kovalevsky is here. Ooh, and Dim already showing. Tell us, what do you show? I don't have a luxury to.
For people who don't really watch us and listen, macOS released funny feature, which I think is pretty useless in most cases. But now you can show different signs with the hands and it adds effects to your video, which is interesting because it works everywhere. That's in addition to this, they actually released something useful. It's improvement to camera. You can turn on like better lights. What else? Oh, you can also blur background, which is useful. I mean, in apps like Zoom, you already have it, but if you use any other tool, it's nice to have it like system-wide. That's not. That's pretty much the best part of a new macOS. I think everything else not that interesting.
Really? What else is there? I honestly do not remember.
Actually can go over like widgets. I wasn't sure I need widgets. I mean, like I live without them for a long time. But there are a couple of interesting things. For example, calendar widget. You can put it and like with the next things. I mean, I usually keep my calendar open, but it's nice to have something small when I don't need like a big window.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't know what, like, it's not many updates. It's like pretty minor update. I never really like get into change logs. I don't think there are like any notable. They added like live wallpapers, which are or live backgrounds, which looks pretty good, but that's about it.
Got it. To be fair, this is a widget hub I always wanted them to work. Finally, they work properly. And I do like how they did it with the camera. It's amazing. They're effectively just updating the stream directly, and it doesn't matter if you're using embedded camera or just external cameras. It just works. There is something to it. I like it.
The tricky part, it only works on M1, M2 Max, not on an Intel. So not everyone will get this feature.
Why tricky? Do you think anyone's still using Intel-based Mac?
It's me. On my work. I still have old laptop.
Yeah, but even even for you just bought a personal. You have M1 there. By the way, do you have any M2 in your household already?
I have. My wife has a M2 MacBook Air, and I think it's actually best MacBook ever. Like really, if I wouldn't need like a lot of memory for game development, I would just buy MacBook Air. It's like perfect laptop ever. I mean, probably there will be better, but so far I haven't seen it. It's like lightweight. It can last like for 2 days if you just like use it time to time. It's like super like quiet because there's no cooling anything. Really, really good machine.
You know, I still think that the best MacBook with M2 ever is iPhone 15 Pro. I think this A17 is just literally M2 that they cut out some part of functionality out of it. But this is actually M2 right there, which is crazy, and it shows. It's overheats constantly. All the fun part of taking desktop CPU and putting in the phone. Yeah, anyway, okay, so I've been drinking and and the reason I sharing that I wasn't able to enjoy the nice drinks for the last several episodes, and the reason I have a problem. There is nothing new. There is no news. I'm just sharing my personal experience that I went through and still going through. So I managed to damage a finger on my left foot, big finger, and that started like a small inflammation, slowly spread to the leg, and even though I was proactive, I went to a doctor. They helped me to get rid of the inflammation of the finger. But by the time they get rid of that and help me to get rid of that, it's actually spread. Whatever was inside, the bacteria spread for the whole foot. And I didn't have any opportunity to normally walk. It was extremely painful. And so obviously they give antibiotics. They take the probe of what is inside, what is going on. They take antibiotics. It was 2 weeks, 14 days that I had to take them, and it was painful. Finally, I'm over on the cycle. But the worst part that even though the actual thing went away for 80%, looks like it's damaged something, either joints in the leg or something on my foot, and I still cannot walk properly. I need to go to now a special foot doctor to see what's going on there and what to do next. But yeah, it's a fun experience.
It doesn't sound like fun, but I really hope you will get better sooner.
Eventually.
Just question: You drink wine?
Yes.
Is it wine from Sonoma?
I think so, actually. I almost all my Cabernet Sauvignon are from either Sonoma or that surrounding county, so actually might be. What do you drink, my friend?
It actually is some whiskey. It's what I like. It's ones that they keep in a port wine barrels, so it has like a sweet wine smell and taste.
Got it. Man, I will be drinking whiskey tonight for sure, 100%. I've been waiting. I have like 3 or 4 bottles of amazing whiskey just waiting to be drank. And yes. Before going to your first topic, do you mind if I will just inject one fun thing that I recently have discovered? It will be small things. So I recently discovered, actually my wife, she discovered an ad from the Google, and they tried to sell her Google Pixel phone. And they have this ad that is almost passive aggressive. So the ad effectively shows you background, and it shows the running list of text. So it's almost like, Star Wars style, where you have tons of the text that you have to read. And the text effectively slowly shows you using Google Photos, using Gmail, using Chrome, using Google Docs, using spreadsheet, and then like a huge pause. But you don't use Pixel phone. And we get it. You probably want to stick to the brand you know. and that's it. That's the whole ad. We get it. It's like the end of the ad.
That's interesting way. Like when you start like iterating, I realize I don't use Google that much these days. I think probably I have Gmail, but mostly as a server inbox, because I don't use their interface anymore. And I still use Google Search because when I need to search something, I go there. But since like ChatGPT, my searches actually went mostly for I know website, but I don't remember how to spell it, so just go to Google. And I also consider to try KG or Kagi, I don't know how to pronounce, like KAGI.com. It's actually paid search. People are pretty happy. I'm not sure I'm ready to pay, but I want to live with it for a while.
Interesting.
But other things from Google I don't really use anymore, which is very strange. Consider that I was using almost all these services before.
By the way, I have the same pattern. ChatGPT have replaced search for me almost entirely, and I want to emphasize that they actually brought back internet access for ChatGPT Plus. It's amazing. Bing is different. I don't know why.
Is it like when they insert links? I just realized yesterday because I was asking ChatGPT something, it actually gave me links to websites.
It is giving links is probably different because, first of all, are you a paid subscriber?
Yes.
Okay, so you have to enable it explicitly. You know, when creating new chat, in the options that it give you, extensions, code interpreter, they brought back internet access. So you need to explicitly pick that option that says internet access, and since you already work with extensions, since you already paid subscriber, the way how it work under the hood from the UI perspective, clearly they just give access to ChatGPT to in-house made extension to access the internet, and you can see it will showing you, oh, I'm now searching blah, clicking blah, reading blah, and doing a lot of interaction there. So it's amazing. It's amazing. I don't know why, because clearly you can go to Bing and in theory you will get GPT-4 with internet. It's just different. It's so much better. ChatGPT Plus is so much better with internet access than anything I have tried. Bard or Bing. Yeah, just throw it out there. Give it a try. It's just amazing.
Okay, I'll try.
ChatGPT internet. Let me just open something because there is a huge announcement 2 days ago about that. And then interesting how big of a splash they did, because ChatGPT used to have that. They disabled it due to concerns with something. I think the concern was that they were able, looks like they have access in the backend to some paywalled materials. So now, since you have a ChatGPT, you technically can reverse engineer a prompt in the way that will give you the site that should be paywalled just to you without any pay. But yeah, that I think was the reason. Okay, my friend, you have a topic that you added to the agenda. Let me start adding it in the screen and tell me more. What the hell is Godot?
It's actually pronounced Godot or something like that. I think it's a French, maybe. But
Okay.
You probably missed it, and maybe people who not into game dev or even games. But a couple of weeks ago, what was happening? Unity game engine. They decided to change their payment policy, and there are a lot of changes. But most important was they wanted to charge per install. So, like if user installs game multiple times, you need to pay 20 cents or something. And they wanted to do it retroactively. So whoever already released games like a few years ago still get into this situation. It's gained a lot of like a shitstorm on the internet. Everyone creating videos discussing. It's like if it was a black PR company, it was very successful. Like everyone were talking about it. After like a couple of weeks of the shitstorm, they actually roll out back most of these policies and actually made pretty reasonable ones. Like you still need to pay some percent of your game, but only when you're already making like huge amount of money. Like I think like 200,000, so even 1 million, something like this. But in the meantime, obviously people there was a lot of fuss about, okay, we're going from Unity to X, where X some other engine or something.
By the way, do you mind if I will add before you jump to Godot about that specific angle of Unity? The word explicitly pissed people out. Like the very thing is that they were retroactive. So they told that we're not going to start charging you if you will have 2 million download from today. We will charge you retroactively from the past thing if you had some amount of charge. That's what pissed people out. That I think was a horrible dick move. And by the way, they also apologized. It's a feeling that they have a PM from Eastern Europe that, you're first showing a horrible deal, and then when everyone's screaming at you, you're showing the deal that you actually want.
Yeah, it seems like a tactic from many companies. Like remember JetBrains? We adding these subscriptions, and people were angry, and then they tune it.
Yep.
But one of the engines that people were like pretend they Exodus, I don't know. Probably people who making game in Unity don't just switch, but it's something to try. It's like Godot is another engine. The interesting part, it's one of these engines which is completely open source. I think it's MIT license. You can open code on a GitHub. It's like contributed by people, so you can go, because one thing with Unity, you couldn't really take a look at source code if you have a bug, and you can't really contribute to it. For example, Unreal has a model where you can see open source code, but you can't really modify it without paying them or something.
I see. Okay.
So I decided also to try Godot because I wanted to try it for a long time, but never get enough like reasons because I already invested some like time in knowing Unity. And actually pretty fun. It's lightweight. It also doesn't have this problem with Unity, you know, like complex software tends to get bloated and you always have like 5 ways to do things. And as an engineer, you're just stuck with this, okay, which one should I choose? So I should make like week-long research, which way is better? Like, is it functional programming, object-oriented programming? But Godot is like super simple. We have only this functionality, you do it one way and that's how you proceed. And one thing, you have a...
Yeah, I wanted to ask, but how, so in Unity, the problem that leads to that is just the open ecosystem and tons of the plugins and extensions. So yes, you will have 15 extensions to do the same thing, but this is the whole idea of having marketplace. So
no, I'm not talking about marketplace. Like the core engine of Unity has two different renderers, and when you search for extensions, you need to explicitly check which one is actually support which. Unity have like a couple of ways to do things. Like one is object-oriented, another one is like data-oriented. Like they completely separate stacks. And like on every step, you have like tons of different things to do. Like, oh, you want input system? There are 2 of them. And some plugins support one, some another. Godot is much simpler. What's interesting is they have their own language called GDScript. Technically, it also supports C# and they have a system to support any other language in the future. What's interesting in GDScript is something that I was thinking about, like there are concepts that specifically to this engine or to game. So you can see like example, right? In examples, there's like a top level functions defined. It's very similar to Python.
Oh yeah, yep.
But the whole file is represent one class. You just don't need like extra nesting because it's always one file, one class. And it's such a like simple idea, which I really like. And it's very tied to in-game entity called node. And I really like the simplicity. Like I'm not a huge fan of Python style indentation, but for game scripts works very well. And I was afraid that I didn't like it much, but it works well and supported well. I already tried a couple of features. I actually made a video on YouTube yesterday where I implemented magnifying glass effect that I did in Unity, and I tried to make the same in Godot. And in Godot, it was like 5 lines versus in Unity, like tons of code.
But tell me, out of curiosity, I'm not a huge developer who develops with these engines and whatnot. I've touched base them briefly. What is the reason to invent yet another language? Like, why not use Python? Why the hell should I learn yet another language? Even though it's simple, sure, like fine, but still, this is a language.
Yeah. So first, I wouldn't say you need to learn it. It's again, like when you look at it, you just understand everything. If you have the second, there are concepts. You can see it in Unity, at least. Like C# is very flexible language, and it allows you like things like how it's called annotations, like annotations. This thing. And you have to do a lot of them to satisfy language because in game engines, code you write, it often interacts with the engine as well. For example, you want to variable to be able to be edited in an editor. So you need a way to run these things like in runtime, but also in like not a runtime, but like in editor time. In C# you can do it with annotations, so you need to add like new constructions. In Python, I don't know Python well, like can you do it or not? In other things like this, like nesting, right? Like because Godot is always like, okay, one node, one script. You don't need like this class nesting and other things. So it's like a lot of garbage that like not really needed here. And it's much easier to write it.
Wait a second, but this is where I'm a little bit confused. The fact that you have one file, one class, which is by the way, almost a Java way. Java has one file, one class, but just to make you suffer, they still ask you to write class keyword instead of the file.
Question, like why?
100% agreed. Like, and by the way, they are actually getting rid of those in the latest Java. there is several proposals. Not that it's released, but they will get rid of that. But you still need nesting, where I'm confused how it's related to nesting. The syntactical sugar that simplifies your definition of the class does not have anything to do with the nesting.
Nesting, I mean like a code nesting, right? Like more tabs from the left.
That type. I see.
In other things, like again, if you take a Python is not typed language. Python asynchronous work is a bit interesting story, I would say. This one, like, we have very specific like engine. I haven't get to async, but I think they have like primitives for that one. And also they have typing system, which is a duck typing. And I actually don't know many languages besides Go and TypeScript, which has a proper strongly typed system with a proper duck typing.
Yes, that's amazing. Agree.
And for game engines, it's like really important because again, if an engine you want duck to be duck, then you just need this duck to make a quack sound. That's it. In other things, they also have integration with the editor in a way somehow similar to Xcode. In Xcode, when you make UI, you can do partially visual, like you can bind things to code visually from editor. I'm not a huge fan of this, but it's something that works in Godot, and I think it can be helpful for game designers when they need to bounce some event, like user open a door or press the button to some action, and they can do it via editor very easily without like doing much wiring in a code, which should help like iterating fast, right? Like my game designer doesn't need to ask me to write code. So this button or this handle opens that door. They can just like use mouse for that.
Got it. That feels like indeed some part of Unity tried similar way, right? Where you have a UI bind to a code to some extent. So it feels like almost all.
They have, like they all have at some extent. Again, these engines prioritize a lot of game design parts, not coding parts. It just Godot doesn't try to pretend it's like full-featured like code system, because Unity has a C#, which is very powerful, and you can do everything. And that's actually the way I prefer to make games, because as an engineer, I try to like let's create architecture with a dependency injection with everything. Godot documentation specifically says just like make simple reusable things that you can just drop on a scene everywhere and they should work. They haven't discouraged people from using like a global objects or like huge systems, anything.
I see. By the way, just because we have touched base on this, I want to mention, because not many people knowing, but since you touched base briefly in the problem with the Python on the concurrency and parallel execution, I want to share with our friends that GL in Python going away.
Oh, they already finished it, or they plan to finish? I remember they plan to do it.
Yeah, so the C Python going to get rid of global interpretation lock. GL is going away on the C Python at least. And I must say that the reason why I know this and the reason why this is happening is because it actually came from the AI world. So the main driver force behind that was a community of the PyTorch, and specifically several key developers of the PyTorch that were fighting for that for almost a decade now to make sure that...
Can you tell me why it's important and what does it give? Like what are the main points for this?
Yeah, so effectively, sorry, I'm thinking which angle to start from. So what is interpretation lock overall? This effectively means that you have one thread. You really have one thread. So yes, you kind of had quote-unquote threads, but they are non-blocking or blocking. What I mean by that you can start thread, but they are green threads. So they are within one real thread. What that means that if you're doing I/O, you're doing network request. It makes sense because you're starting a network call and then you can move to something else and then you can go back. So from the perspective of your CPU, it's the same thread, but from your syntaxis perspective, you need to start threads, quote unquote. Now, in the AI world, you have tons of the real concurrency to do. You are doing many parallel computation at the same time. And the way how it used to work, you would have a Python wrapper over the C code. And you will constantly call that C level to do stuff, which is the reason why it was not super big of a deal, because if you need a fast computation, you're still going to write it in C. So PyTorch and NumPy and scikit-learn, many of those products, they're actually a layer on top of C++ code anyway, and C++ give you exposure to proper threading on that level. But this doesn't mean that there was no any part of the computation that you could have done on the Python level if you just have a possibility of having proper concurrent executions, which now you have.
Python didn't allow you to scale for different CPUs, for many CPUs, right?
Sorry, here's why it gave me pause. If you would try to speak with the Python adapt that has white liquid coming from his mouse, because he would be super disappointed of hearing what you just said, if that would be a statement, he would tell you the story that no, you can, the reason why they will tell you they can, because technically you should be operating on the processes level. So you should use your Python code to spin up another Python process.
Similar to Node.js, pretty much. That's what I understand.
Yes, very similar, but it is shitty because the whole idea to have the whole last thousands of years, the whole computer science have moved to Go-like things where you actually can speed up more lightweight through concurrent entities. And their answer, no, you should do even more heavyweight concurrent entity, which is like the whole process speeding up. So it didn't make any sense. And to be fair, community knew about that, and majority of the.
But it's also hard to at least. For me, it looks like it's very hard to introduce these things into existing language. I mean, Go was designed from the beginning. Let's make it so you can run these concurrent Go routines and you don't care about processes. But that was baked in language with all the fact that Go completely removed problem with the red-blue functions really shows it.
First of all, now you have to explain what is red-blue functions.
How are you familiar with JavaScript? Because it's a probably biggest example. In JavaScript, you can make a function and you can make an async function. The only difference that async function is actually wrapped in a promise. It returns promise. So now when you call async function and you want to wait for this, you have a keyword await. So now if you have regular functions that needs result from async function, needs to become async. So this async became like a disease, like every function that use another async functions, they start building, and you end up just first all functions are async and all operations are await operations. And it's it does make the whole code, I've seen this a lot, we have code base where every line starts with await essentially.
But by the way, is this a recommended way? Because when I'm writing TypeScript, I just saying, no, I want my promise to finish now because my function is not async. No. So
when you say promise finish now, you need to await on this promise.
Sure, yes, I'm awaiting in that, and this will allow my.
When you do await, your function, which has this promise await inside, also need to be async, because you can't use await inside.
I see.
It's just it starts spreading, right? But in a Go, if you call function synchronous, and if you want it asynchronous, you can use a Go statement, and so it's opposite. That makes sense. It makes things easier. You don't need to change your functions all the way.
One thing to be fair, one thing I would love Go to have, if your function is designed to be run in Go routine, to have similar thing that JavaScript has that tells you cannot call it directly. Because time to time, I now have so many bugs when I just call a function when I should have Go function, because I want to start a Go routine, but I forgot and I call it directly. And,
but why? What does it mean design? It's taking long time or what? Let's say a function to call another backend services, like remote call. Should it be a function to wait or not?
When it's ambiguous, sure, but I was referring where that this function only have to be in a background mode or async mode, so you can mark it in the way that you want it to be in async mode, because if you inside of a function passing the channel that should be used to send result, very likely you do not want this function to be asynchronous. Even though,
I
yes,
would
you
say
can.
it's not up to language, but you can name them, like always call me with Go prefix and then have a linter to do it.
No, but why not up to the language? It's like, I look on it as annotation override in Java. It's optional, you don't have to use it, but if you actually use it, the compiler will help you to check. So it's exactly the same. Like it's.
But that's what I don't want to go, like to become Java with annotations and like some magic which doing something.
To be fair, the Go way of let's use comments instead of annotations is not that better. It feels like, oh, it's so simple when you're starting, and then you start realizing how many magic they just hiding in the comments.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, sorry, we diverge. Microphone back to you.
Oh, I forgot what we were talking about.
Oh, a blue-red function where everything is spread as a disease, like an open source license that never stops.
That was your ask to explain what's red-blue functions. But it was from, if we're unwinding our stack, it was about Python, GL, and other things. So they implementing new way to do concurrency, right?
Yes, they're implementing not necessarily a new way, they're implementing new mode, because by default it was a green thread. Green thread is effectively a thread that's not real thread. Now it's going to be a real thread. And I agree with you that many of these things were fundamental limitation of the Python, and even the fact that it's only happening in C Python, not the main Python, it says a lot. So the main Python still will remain with a GL and C Python will not.
Again, for layman, like what is the difference relation between Python and C Python? Is like two different interpreters or something?
Yeah, you do have many different interpretation of the Python. You have GPython, for example, that is on top of GVM, so you have many of those. And technically, I do not think that Python standard requires you to have one on another way of concurrency. Just that this is a thread, and historically the Python have green threads inside. But I don't think it's a specification of the language. It's probably a specification of the particular interpreter of the source code.
How people live with it? I mean, if you write your code for concurrency and it can be run in a different interpreter, whatever. Like, it seems like it's source of bugs, or typically when people write code, it's like for very specific type of Python.
Yes, so they all writing code for the just Python, so they all know that is a GL. So no one going to know what is atomic write, atomic read, what is lock on read, lock on write. This is not a thing that Python developer will know. And to be fair, this is kind of the selling point of the Python, that you don't have to know all the shit. Yes, your program is inefficient, and if you're writing for things like Flask, at least when last time I was exposed to that, I don't know the current state of affairs, but the idea was that Flask is effectively abstraction on top of your code that's spinning up the process for each request. So now
it's very similar for Node.js forks. Like Node.js has the same, right? Like different processes, but they only handle web requests.
Exactly. So when you have one thread, you don't have all this problem with multi-threading. But now they will have.
Exactly. It's like because, for example, again, I'm getting from JavaScript, right? Like people know like concurrency, like they fine with it. They know asynchronous function can change code, but at least between two lines of code, you get stable environment to live with. But once you get like second thread, then it's gone.
You know, this might be exactly the case with Java early days. So the Java before Java 3, I think, 1.3, when it was 1.x. So Java before 1.3 have the old collection. So in Java world, there is old collection, there's new collection. So there used to be, before list, there used to be something else. Honestly, I don't remember, a vector, I think, but don't remember exactly. And the biggest difference that in old Java, all the collection were synchronized. So all the operation was locking operation. So you cannot add to the list for more than two thread cannot add to the list at the same time. One will wait, another to finish, which was a horrible waste of time, because this means that you now need to have a semaphore, or you need to have some type of the lock, which on the operating system level actually a quite time-consuming operation. So you would have a very inefficient collections just for the sake of making it thread safe. And this was happening way before now in computer science there is many optimizations with making it better. For example, right now you actually on the Java and almost all programming language has optimization that will optimized for the speed for the first thread that will use any semaphore. This is because in 90% of the cases, all program using semaphore with one thread. So that one, the same thread, just using it, and that's about it. Because some of the program are just developers are not all equally smart, so they will use concurrently safe constructions for non-concurrent environment. So this optimization actually saved the world from many problems. But that was happening already before. So I'd assume in Python will be something like that. Any add to a list will be synchronized, so you have to wait, you have to lock. And that's my guess. I honestly am not a Python developer, so I don't know. But if any Python developers are listening to us, please let us know how it's working under the hood. I would love to learn it.
Exactly.
By the way, I want to share one horror from my past because we're speaking about this. So Java and this specific optimization that I just told, that concurrent optimization, there is an optimization for concurrent lock for the first thread that's trying to obtain the lock. And how do you do this? Because the Java is old language, you cannot introduce suddenly a new bunch of memories for this optimization. So turns out, it was a very clever move. So the Java on the C++ level, if you're reading the C code, I will not be able to search it right now quickly. I don't even remember where it is. But on the low level, there is a C++ construction that is effectively a metadata for the class. One of the field there is a hash code. Hash code is a hash of the object. In the Java, you can take a hash of any object in the language. This is done for many tasks, but this is just embedded in the language. And in order to speed up the hash code, from the beginning of the days, Java had a part of the memory reserved for the hash code. So if you're calling the hash code, it will calculate it and save it in this cache. And any further call to hash of the object will just read from the cache. So effectively, only one first call to give me a hash of the object will actually result in any calculation. That was working historically until, first of all, does it make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay, so that was working. This was from almost the beginning, and this was logical implementation. Now this concurrent implementation comes in, so that someone published the white papers that was extremely useful for the world. Every language start doing that. But the problem there now for the object, you need to store a point to the thread that try to lock you. So this optimization requires you to have this pointer and optimize with that one thread, and do it until any other thread will try to lock you in. Only if you see the second thread, in this case, you actually starting the semaphore or real lock, but when
it all goes under the hood, or it's for developers to do.
Oh, you don't know this. You're just running lock, or synchronize in Java, but like lock. And in reality, what happens, if you are the first time locking it, it will store the pointer to a thread and will not create any semaphore in real life. Only until the second thread come along, only then it will create the actually time costly semaphore and all do this shit.
It could be really strange, like you create a second thread and now everything goes very slow.
True, but in reality it was suddenly got better when they introduced this, because it was slow for everything and now it got better for many cases.
Okay, that makes sense.
But here is an interesting point. So where do you store this pointer? Because Java actually has a limit on the memory footprint. You cannot just introduce additional memory for even one pointer somewhere on the object. So they actually start putting the pointer on the thread in the hash code field. So now, if you actually have the object that within the semaphore and you computing the hash code of the object, it works slow at the same time. And when I first time discovered it was like 2012. I was in Amazon, I think, and we have a very weird bug where we added the synchronize and hash code start being so slow that we noticed that. I spent a month figuring out why. And turns out that yes, when it's passing the keyword synchronize, it's putting the pointer of the thread in the field of the hashcode. So from that very moment, you have to compute hashcode each time you're calling the hashcode function. You have to do caching yourself now. You cannot rely on the Java. Anyway, sorry, this just
I don't like this like magic things, because again, like you do something and it doesn't work anymore, and you can't really tie your head why what you did like causes these issues.
You know, your phrase is true if you got to the industry in the middle, like I did. I got to the industry in the middle when I saw this speed that I just describing. But if you would get to the industry before me, you will just see it's all slow. Like everything is just slow.
Just remember, like interesting note. I was reading Godot documentation. Find interesting concepts they use. They have type called variant, which is I think 20 bytes, and it's used for everything. It's literally like floating strings, rectangles, vectors, anything. I actually can send a link to you.
Description of variant, the most important data type in Godot.
I think it's actually it's one of the things, right? Like why they choose like their own. I think it's somehow smart idea, because now you can align memory very well, because like regardless what types you use, they all like chunked in a proper. So you can see this. It's just like represent everything.
Jesus, this is Jesus. But you know, this is actually when I was mentioning about all this shit with Java. Java has a type like variant under the hood that represent metadata of everything. It's very similar. Now that I'm looking at this, it's very, very similar. It represents the most simplest parts of everything.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about games, actually, most data types are actually super simple. It's usually vector, like 2D vector, or like a string, or Boolean, or something. Like it's not really complex types.
Makes sense. Anyway, my friend, do you have anything to add to this, or we should go to other gaming topics?
We definitely should go to other topics.
So I will start. I have things to share about Starfield new parts, but before that, a very short thing. Did you know how Alan Wake connected to the game control?
I mean, it's same universe as I told, and I've seen. I played game, and I get game for free on PlayStation, and they has DLC connected to Alan Wake, but I didn't play DLC. But I know it's there.
Are you okay if I will spoil this to you? Because
yeah,
this,
sure.
Okay.
I probably won't play it anyway.
The connection is amazing, like really amazing. I haven't finished Control, but since I start playing Control on Xbox, and when I start replaying on Xbox, DLC already was there, so I start playing with the DLC. They added the level where you have a reference to Alan Wake, and everything fits into the place so nicely. So just follow the line, so to speak. Alan Wake was able to write the scripts that were coming to life, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to escape his situation, he wrote a story about the control. And the control is actually part of his story that he needed for the sake of escaping. And when you're finding this room, you see that narrative connecting of how he actually did it in order to escape from his story. So that old building does not exist. And he wrote this story in the way that it will not impact the real New York. So he phrased it in the way that no one can see that, all that bullshit. Because he needed something real to escape that will not impact the real world. And he invented the whole story.
Interesting.
That's like
it's pretty smart, because control itself, they control things like what's happened to Alan Wake, right? Like the bureau.
Yes, and the game, this control, they thought that they're investigating this, and they went and sent the agent. But in reality, the whole control was invited by him to send the agent to rescue him from the first place, and that was his way out, so to speak. Anyway,
by the way, in a control, did you get to Ashtray Maze already?
No.
Okay,
No.
I will not spoil, and I suggest you not to Google it because it's probably one of the best parts of the game.
You know, I'm not sure that I will go back to the control, so I'm not there. So yeah, let's do it. Just tell me. Just tell me what's going on there.
I will spoil it for you and for everyone. I mean, control is the old game, right? It's like
yes,
21.
that's the thing.
So there's an interesting place in the game. It's a labyrinth, right? Like it's a room. You get to the room and room changing, and you always get to the beginning. Like you walk and then you get to beginning. It looks like this, and like it's changing constantly, and you can't really get through there. It's not a puzzle. You actually need to progress in the story. And there's a story. You remember a guy who was mopping floors?
Yes, of course.
So he gave you his audio player, like cassette audio player. And when you go to this room, the main character, she wear like headphones and start music, and it's like a Finnish metal something playing.
Okay.
And then this labyrinth start like making like some pass with the enemies. You need to fly. It's like changing constantly, like Inception game. And this like Finnish metal music. What's interesting, I didn't check it. I had an impression that they actually synchronize music with your position. I suspect it may not be true, but I need to like read it, because when you just run through corridors, the music like plays like some slow part. But when you get to the fight, but it's essentially it's not like a random music. It's like a metal song with a vocal, with like a solos and everything. And it's really good. Like it's only a few minutes while like you go through it, and then when like even like Charity, when she removed like headphones, she's like, it was amazing. It's really one of these moments in the games when you really like feel like they really put an effort. You can watch it on YouTube. It's still like pretty cool video, like and really nice part of the game.
But you have not spoiled much, except for the fact that your movements synchronize with the music. That's probably all I
just.
One of
the things. It's like it's not like some like very strange, like, you know, it doesn't really change narrative or anything. It's like it's just one of these places that, you know, they have tons of places. Remember, like rooms where you need to go to phone. You need to go through 3 hotels.
Yes.
It's like one of the things which prevents things from escaping. It's just like the way they done it when you play. It's really nice feeling.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay. I definitely will watch on the YouTube, because again, I'm not sure I will go back to the control. I don't have too much of the time that I spent playing, and now I play in Starfield most of the time, and that's where my time went. And I wanted to share some of the interesting things that I as I progress, I will be learning about Starfield and we'll be sharing. I now more than 20 hours in the game, slowly, hour by hour, and it's coming together. And I'm going to share just one small thing, so to speak. Sorry, I was thinking where to start. Skills point, skill tree. It's actually quite unique. Let me open Starfield skill tree. I like the idea behind what they did. I do not like the implementation. So the implementation is horrible, but I really want the idea to persevere in other games. So the idea is that you have a skill tree. The skill tree by itself is very, very simple. It's like a cyberpunk or anything. It's very simple. So there is the skills are interesting, but there is no novelty here. But two things. One thing is horrible. Why I'm saying that implementation is horrible. Everything is actually locked behind the skills. What I mean by that, imagine that it's not that bad, but imagine that you cannot run until you unlock a skill running. So it's that basic. So you can run in this case, but it's that basic. For example, you cannot do a long jump. They have a booster pack that allow you to jump for a big height, and you cannot do that until you will unlock the. I think you will spend at least 2 skill points there, and the reason there is not much going on in the game. So locking stuff that should be open from the beginning looks like was the only way for them to make sure that you have a little bit longer game experience than you actually have.
But what is unique in the system you mentioned?
Yes, now the unique part. in the Cyberpunk, for example, an almost starter game, you earning experience, and each experience give you a skill point that you can spend wherever you want. Okay. Yes, you can. Obviously, you need to build a funnel. If you want to in Cyberpunk to have a hacking, you need to have basic hacking, then advanced, and so on and so on. Okay. But what always was confusing for me, you can't be earning skill set from killing enemies with a shotgun and spending skills points on the hacking, even though your character actually do not hack anything, and you suddenly can find yourself as a hacker of level blah. Here, they actually doing two things. They're telling you what type of the quest you need to complete and how many skill points you need to have. So if you want to have a better hacking, you need to hack a lot of the systems and collect the skill points. So effectively, if you want to build a hacker narrative, you're collecting skill points. You already have in the beginning of the game, in any game, you're collecting them faster than slower. So
isn't it like somehow similar to Skyrim, their previous game? I think they also have like you run a lot and it's like getting upgraded and so on.
I never played Skyrim, so maybe. I don't know.
I think it's at least I don't remember exactly, but I remember like if you use like a particular weapon, you get progress in that, and then you can spend skills in this particular weapon tree.
I never played Skyrim, but yes, that's exactly what. Yes, that feels exactly like it.
Reuse the same system.
But the idea, I like it. I would love more games to be like that, because it's actually tightly couples your action with a narrative for your character that you're building. It's really nice. Like you cannot build.
Yeah, I agree and disagree in two places.
Okay,
I like the idea because it's actually fit narrative, right? Like if you're jumping a lot, you should be just start to jump higher, right? Like you train this.
Exactly. Yes.
But it also doesn't give you ability, like, because at least I played the Skyrim only like a bit, but I have this problem, like I start playing with a like big sword, and then I didn't really want to switch to anything else because I already put so much effort, and I couldn't start with a smaller sword because then I need to, to start with a small enemies or something, which was a bit of a problem.
Sure, yes, that is actually there. And, two problems. First of all, I'm running with like 5 points of skill points that I do not want to spend because I haven't finished the things that I need to finish. That is there. And the second part, when you do invent them, you kind of closing the loop on some of the things. But to be fair, I do like that from the RPG's point of view. Yeah. Like from the perspective that it's kind of... it makes for me game more fun, and I know myself, if I'm playing the game that allow you to do everything, I will just increase everything. And
I just remember, like, do you remember GTA San Andreas where you can eat burgers and became fat, and then go to gym and became fit?
Yes.
That was most realistic thing ever.
Yeah, that was cool indeed. That was cool indeed. And I want to mention another thing about the Starfield. So I'm 90% sure that the main story that you have, and first of all, any Bethesda games have a horrible main story. The side stories are the best. But in this specific game, I actually do think that they switched the main story last minute. That the current main story is not the one that they intended to have main story.
Interesting.
Yes, so... I don't want to spoil main story, but I will try to be spoiler free. There is a side story where you're joining the cosmic fleet, and you can effectively be part of the cosmic fleet and fight on behalf of the United Colonies, good guys fighting with the bad guys, so on, so on. By the way, let me open Starfield, at least side.
So it feels more epic, right? So it should be main story before.
Not only that, but it actually includes training. So when you're starting that side story, it physically starts in the same place where you're starting the game. The first thing when you're starting the story, they tell you, oh, now you're part of the cosmic fleet. Let us train you. So they walk you through the museum of everything that have happened in this universe. So we kind of will read it, appreciate more. Then they ask you to complete the training and the simulation of the fight in the space. So you actually learn how to fight in the space. After that, you will have your first fight on the ground. So it feels like it's tutorial that progresses, while the main story doesn't tell you anything about space fight, doesn't tell you anything about the lore. You like go there, pick up this, go there, pick up this, and
Well, why they did it?
I Google it, I read several Reddits. My only guess, because this is now after Bethesda got bought by Microsoft and this game is available through the Game Pass. This side story that they looked like have switched almost 2 times longer.
I see. So take more time.
Exactly, yes, because you're now paying in the Game Pass, you're paying per hours that you played.
It's actually like what I was afraid with all this Game Pass. People start like making games longer just to get more money from Game Pass.
But I see your concerns, but the reason why I was never afraid of that, and by the way, I bought this game, so I don't actually have Game Pass. I like because I don't have a lot of time. I don't have Game Pass. I buying the games and I investing a lot of time in them and I finishing them. So it's very slow process for me. But when I used to own Game Pass and I periodically trying it again and again and again. And the reason why I'm mentioning that this is not concern of mine, almost with any Game Pass, Apple included, if you're installing the shitty game that does not attract you to keep playing, you're just deleting it and installing a new one because you have a Game Pass. You have all the games you want. There is nothing that tied you to this game.
I'm not saying like a bad game or good game. It's just like a good game which could make like 10 hours, it became 20 hours. And it's not only in Game Pass. Like I've seen like a lot of sentiment from people. Oh, hey, I paid for this game $70 and it's only 15 hours. I want more. Which for me actually like, opposite, because I have money, but I don't have time anymore. I think it was like a really good example was with a game called 1890 something, like on PlayStation 4.
1890 something, Google like that exactly. Singapore? I don't know.
No. So, it was Order something. Okay, it was Order, if you just like...
The Order 8086.
It was like really cool game. Like back then, it was like mind-blowing graphics. It was like PS4, early days. It was like just amazing. But game was only 4 hours. For me, it was really good. Story, like characters were awesome. Like there was like really interesting intrigue. Now the gameplay was awesome. But people were upset because like 4 or 5 hours. For me, it was like perfect. Like it was really solid movie. But it's never get a sequel because again, people were upset it was too short. But it's like my standard complaint about gamers.
I actually hearing more and more points that are effectively consistent with what you just said. People don't have time, that want shorter game that you can end to end. And I hear you, I see that perspective, but for me, surprisingly, it went an opposite. And the reason why it went an opposite, because I do not have so much time. I actually do not want to learn another lore, another mechanics. I want to keep to the game that has like 400 hours. I want to keep reading books about that game. I want to keep learning more about the mechanics.
I understand. Fun fact, actually, which was revealed in a recent like PlayStation, Xbox. You know that there are 1 million PlayStation 5 consoles that only installed one game. It's Call of Duty.
Of course.
And that's one of the reasons why it's so popular. Right? It's the same formula again and again. People just play this game because they want like after work go and play it. I think I have the same with Apex Legends, right? Like okay, it's changing over time, but for me it's like almost the same, still challenging, and I can play it without like learning much. It's just like very similar, and all new things they add it like in a chunks every few months, and I know what's going on and so on.
Yeah, we're on a very similar boat, but I do want to have the single player, not the single player experience. I want to have a game that progresses and you learn about the lore something. So it doesn't have to be single player, but usually it's a single player where you learn more, except maybe Destiny where you have a multiplayer, but you're still learning, it's still missions, there's still something that excites you. And that's why I do really like the game, like have 400 plus hours, and I don't mind.
I'm really looking forward to start Cyberpunk with a new DLC again. It's
Wait,
not like
I thought it's out, no?
It's out, but I'm still playing Baldur's Gate. And it will take me a while. They actually redesigned a skill system in Cyberpunk, so I'd like to see what they made.
Yeah, I by the way, I will join you in Baldur's Gate as soon as it's out on a Xbox, but it's coming to Xbox, but I still don't know when. So
probably they will release on macOS before that. So.
How I hate this universe. Anyway, I think we're actually precisely on 1 hour. What do you think? We will cut here, stop here. There is so many other topics I want to discuss with you, but
so we need to stop discussing games and LLMs. We need to ban them for a while.
But come on, what if we do mostly engineering, LLMs, and games? No, I actually want to discuss. There is a new article that I wrote about UODP. So there is stuff that I okay. You will be my accountability partner. I'm committing to you. I will bring topic about the management next time.
Okay, let's do it.
With that, dear listeners, thank you for watching, or listening to us, and we will talk to you same place, same time next week.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, just give me a second. I will stop the live. Thank you everyone for listening to us. Bye bye. No after show today.